We're going inside, guys. Whee! Walking in, walking in. Okay, I guess we'll...
Okay, now, here's the deal, guys. Okay, come around here. You're going to go up the back stairway.
Okay.
And when you get around the curve, okay, there is a handrail, so take your time, don't push. But the problem is, at the top, there's a sloping roof line. So you have to watch your head until you take 2 or 3 steps on across the room, okay?
Okay.
So adults, you're in big trouble, okay?
Lovely.
Now, there's volunteers up there waiting for you. Now, just take your time.
Take your time, one at a time, no need to rushing. I think it's gonna be good. Come on in, have a seat.
You're being recorded,
Oh,
aren't you?
good.
Yeah. Oh, look at the bed. Oh, look at the little headroom. Oh. Dakota. Dakota just got caught fooling around.
That's where the slaves would have been hidden.
Can we go inside and not
You
get
can go
slaves?
in, but you can look in. You can
Uh.
Kind of creepy. Everyone in this group? Yeah. Okay, great.
Oh, I don't think you guys will see this good. Okay. So, it's dark.
This room, I think, is the most exciting room in the whole house. It's got the secret hiding place in it.
Yay!
It's called the hired girls' room or the garret. Now, the hired girls' room would have been, coffins did have children, and this would have been a children's bedroom. But as they got a little older, Levi and Katie had so many people coming to the door that they would have needed some young ladies to help them cook and clean and keep up with things. So they took girls. How old are you girls?
9, 10.
Okay, about your age. You would have been hired, and you would have lived in this room. And whenever Katie needed some extra help cooking or cleaning, that would have been part of your job, making the beds and just basically working around the house. The girls that did live here, a girl that age would have worn a dress very similar to this right here. It's a Quaker style dress, and she would have wore a bonnet all the time, nighttime, daytime. She wore a bonnet, and she would have slept in this room. But Mr. Coffin had this house built, so when he had this built, he put in this room a secret hiding place, and it runs from the stairway all the way to the back corner. And this was just in case the house was ever searched. But in all his time here, the house was never searched because he was a very intelligent man and he knew the law. And if someone came to the door, just like nowadays, they had to have paperwork to come in, search papers. So, and he knew that more than likely, if they were chasing someone, they didn't have the proper paperwork because they didn't know where they were going. So they would have come to the door and banged on the door. He could have hidden the slaves at that point and found out what was going on. And after their paperwork, well, if they didn't have it, he would send them to the nearest courthouse, which was clear over in Centerville, which is by horseback an all-day trip. So he knew there'd be no chance of them being back in time to search his house before the slaves had been long gone. And they knew, too, that if they left, whoever might have been here was not going to be there when they came home. So this house, like I said, he was very fortunate in not having to have to worry about being searched, but he did provide the availability. And the room is not very wide, as you can see right here. It's the same way all the way back. No electricity, of course, so it starts. But what they would have done is shut the door, moved the bed over so that it would have closed up that opening, and if someone did come through to search, more than likely they're coming through quickly because they're wanting to see they can find these folks, and if they can't, then they need to be on their way looking for them somewhere else. So that
goes to another room,
yeah, you'll be going in there now.
Yeah, because I can hear people in there.
That's the master bedroom. That will be the next room. But this bed, yeah, okay, we'll start over here. What is that over here in the corner? Any ideas what that might have been? Exactly. It's a hip tub. Basically, I think that's all that you would get washed.
Yeah.
You would set in that. It would definitely have been more than likely down by a fireplace. You would not be carrying up hot water up those type of steps in a long dress. Wouldn't have happened. Before showing it off, we put it up here. It is a tin bathtub, and they would have put hot water in there. You would have took your bath, and then the water would have been dumped out. So that was your bath. Then the beds are made out of something different. They don't have box springs and mattresses like we do. They have a rope bed. Has anybody ever been in a hammock before?
Yeah. I have.
What happens when you get in a hammock?
It tosses and turns.
It does, and sometimes it sags really low, like this rope. If you were to get in, it kind of slopes down. That's what happens to your bed. So they have to tighten the way. Every bed has got a different way. I'm not 100% sure how this one is tightened, but the bed you've ever heard the saying, sleep tight and don't let the bed bugs bite?
Yep.
More than likely it came from this time frame. The sleep tight was make sure your ropes of your bed were tightened so you didn't end up on the floor. And the bed bugs, well, you were sleeping on straw and feathers and all kinds of things that would come from the barn. Well, there might have been little spiders or little things in there that might have bit you. So that's pretty well that's where that came from. As you look around, you'll see a little doll bed and a little rocking chair. These are kids' toys. They didn't have a lot of toys, but they were children and they did have some toys. So you see that around. As you also look around, you'll see all the covers and everything. Everything in the house is almost 200 years old. So think about that when you look at this. These weren't sewn on your sewing machines. These were handmade and very beautifully made.
Is that a baby bed?
It's a baby doll bed. It's sort of like a little girl would have played with her baby doll. Yes, sir.
Hey, did you have to replace the floorboards in this room, or have they always been?
There has been a few floorboards and a few things around the house that's had to be replaced because of that many years.
172.
Exactly. It's going to wear out after a while. But the majority of everything in the home is original.
Okay.
Are there any questions? You can peek in if you'd like. If you've not had a chance to look in there, please do.
Are you gonna come in here?
In just a second. I've got a couple stories I can tell you about this room, at least one.
Okay.
In Mr. Coffin's book, making sure everybody got enough room here. Mr. Coffin's book, he gives us lots of stories about what happened in this house. We're really lucky to have them. There was a story about two little girls that were slave girls, and they were running away from their slave master. So what they did is they finally made it to their grandma and grandpa's house, which was a free slave's house up near Lynn. And they got there, it was a little house with only one door, front door. Well, there's the bounty hunters that were looking for them right behind them, and when they got there, they were scared. They were in front in the house, they were stuck in the house. Grandma went out with her big butcher knife and was going to keep them out of the house. Well, what was happening when they were arguing with the people, there was some people coming and going, some of the other families, and they were in and out of that front door, and what they were doing were dressing up the two little girls like little boys. And then they flipped them right out in front of the slave hunters, didn't know who they were. And they got them on a horse, and they sent them to Levi and Katie's house. And Levi tells us that Katie got the girls, didn't know how soon people would be looking for them, but they would be looking eventually. And so she brought him into one of the rooms, we kind of think it might have been here, and snuck them in between a feather bed and the straw tick. Snuck them in there, you know, put him in there and said, "Now be quiet." Well, after a little while, they started giggling. They were little girls. That's what they do when they're little girls. They're just like us. And they started to giggle so much that she had to move one and put her in the other bed to keep them quiet because she didn't want them to stir up and people start hearing what was going on. But they were able to make it on. But this is just a couple of the stories that, you know, that actually did happen here in this house, which is kind of fun to hear. And actual people did do this. This is what they had to do. They had to run for their lives. So what Katie and Levi did was very helpful for many, many folks. Any questions? You're going to have lots of fun things to see throughout the house. This is only your first stop. You've got a lot more rooms. And if someone just peek in there and see if they're done, if not, we'll
Stand back, guys.
Well, since we have a little more time, I can tell you a little more things. I never know how much we got to do. Sometimes we'll get busy. If you look at all the windows as you go through the house, see how that wavy glass?
Yeah.
That's original glass. Now, I grant you there are a couple things, like you mentioned before, that might have been replaced where they've been broken. But you can tell up at the top there, some of the glass is original. All the woodwork around the baseboards and everything is original. And like at this picture of this doorway here, why do you think it's so short?
I think it's so short because back in the old days they didn't really have much tools to make it
Well,
bigger.
no, actually they were very intelligent back then. Look at the roof line. Look at that roof. They could have made it any taller. If they made it any taller, they'd have to scoot it over. And when they scooted it over, then they would be in part of that closet over there. They didn't want their doorway in their closet. So that's the reason the door's short. Because Mr. Coffin was fairly tall for his age back then. Now, they were just a tad bit shorter than we are today, but they still were fairly tall. So he would have had to duck to get in there, too. They weren't little midgets. Yes?
This is, I think it's a way that they made that door shorter. Because the little girls that used to be in here,
so they can get in there easier.
Well, they could have. They've gotten in there a lot easier than Levi and Katie probably did. But no, I think it's just mainly because of the way of the roof line. And the reason the roof is this way is the way the house was built, so that he could also hide that little secret hiding room. Because if you're outside, you're not going to see an extra room. It's just part of the roof. So just another way of he made it very smart. Yes?
What is this place over here?
It's an old building. They're going to eventually tear that down and make it part of the Levi Coffin's, not their house, but their places you can buy like souvenirs and restrooms, and make a little bigger meeting room over there. So you don't have to sit on the bus to hear the history. So maybe when you're grown up it'll be done.
Hopefully.
We're hoping it gets done in our lifetime, but anyway. Any other questions? No? Well, it's hard on the very first time because you don't have as many questions yet. So I'm sure as you go along you'll have more. Yes?
Did you replace the curtains or the...
Yeah, some of the things, like all the bedding and all the furniture particularly, is not original to the house. It's from the same time period, but it's not from this particular house. Because this house did many things. They moved to Cincinnati, and so they would have took their stuff with them. But we have a few things. Yes, another question?
Comment. You're informing people online.
Pardon?
You are informing people online.
Oh, online. Okay, great. Now, would you like to check, sir, and see if they're done in there? I think that bill is for us to kind of move along.
They should.
Alrighty, then go on and enjoy.
You gotta be careful.
One last time. I think for this
Ah. Yay. This is a pretty bigger room.
Yes, this is a nice big room.
Yeah. Bigger than that.
It's bigger than my bedroom.
Hey, there's a safety rope. How come you get across it?
Class, this is Levi and Catherine's master bedroom. When Levi had the house built, and it was built by his nephew, he said to his nephew, I want 2 closets in my bedroom. One over here and one over there. Back in those days, class, there was no need for 2 closets because the woman would have maybe 2 work outfits. The man might have 2, and then their Sunday go meeting outfits. And it wouldn't take 2 closets to hold that. My theory of why he wanted the second closet is because they had so much company, and they came here and would stay a long time, sometimes 2 weeks or 3 weeks at a time. So they would need the extra closet to hang their things in. In this closet over here, you see the white linen suit that's back in the closet? That is for the gentleman's summer wear. See his black hat up there on the hook? And then I have 3 styles of dresses. But the one I'm going to talk to you about is this brown one. When the brown one came to the home, it was all tattered and torn and had holes in the skirt. Well, we boxed it up and sent it to New York, and up there they have specialists that know how to mend fabric. It came back with no holes in it, just looked like new, and so we put it on a model so that you could see how plain the dresses were back in those days. Notice here, there are no buttons. Now there are snaps and a hook here to close the front. And the bonnet was in such bad condition that they really got it really looking nice. The expense to the home was $2,000 to put that in here, but we thought it was worth it. Please put your hand down until I have finished, and then I go ahead. Over here is the wash basin. Down here is the pitcher, and that would have the water in it. Pour it in here, and Levi and Catherine would wash their face using lye soap for your face, for your clothing, and for dishes. When they were finished and had their hands dried, they'd just up this window and throw the water out the window. You'd say, well, it's in front of the house, and you were out there on the bricks when you entered the home. So, but at that time of night there would be nobody on the street because she didn't have street lights and things like that. It was all very, very dark. Here's another thing that if you were a girl in a Quaker family, you would be asked to make your own sampler. And they would be given a piece of linen fabric, and you had to design it. They always put letters, numbers, and sometimes a little poem in it, or a favorite animal, or like this one has, is the house. The Quakers believed that they were never perfect, like God or Jesus. So they were asked by their parents to put a mistake in the sampler. Do you see the mistake in this sampler? Do you see it?
Yeah, I do. The alphabet's wrong.
Well, in what way?
The letters are out of, the top row doesn't have the right letters.
No.
It has 2 A's, top row.
It has 2 A's. We don't say the alphabet A, B, C, D, E, F. No, you don't do that. So that's the mistake, to show that she was not perfect. We are very proud of this bed. If we would cut this off here, which we would never do, and turn this upside down, it represents a bell. So it's called a bell bed. But the thing we like most about it is that it's a trundle bed. You pull this out and it goes way over there. It sleeps 3 children nicely this way. So early in the morning, Catherine would get up. She'd wake these 3 children here, dress them for the day, shoes and socks and clothes on, and then she'd make this trundle bed. Then when she had the bed made, she'd scoot it out of the way, and then she had more room to work in her bed. The Quakers wore something on their heads, inside the house as well as outside the house. This is the netting that she would wear in the summertime. You would hardly feel this on your head. When they went outdoors, they would wear a bonnet. Here is their bathroom. This is called the chamber pot. And the lid got broken on this one. But if you were a girl in the Quaker family, you would come up, get the chamber pot, take it down the front stairs, empty it, wash it out, clean it, and then let it air, leave it out there to air. And then later in the afternoon, you would bring it back to this bedroom. Here's the cradle for the baby. We've got the candles up there. Here's a Seth Thomas clock. That one of the features is that it has wooden gears. See the small pair of glasses up there? I call them granny glasses.
Yeah.
We have no idea of who owned those glasses. They were just given to the house for us to display. On that side of the room is a chest of drawers. On the top of the chest is a box that has a sliding lid, and that's where they would keep their candles. See the small model? That's where shows you how the bonnets would look on the girls, about like your ages. The drying racks have many patterns of coverlets that the weavers of Wayne County made for to sell, because that would be worn. Are there any questions?
Like, if you were, does this fireplace still work?
Yes, indeed it does.
Oh my.
In the house we have 5 fireplaces. So any boys that are in this room, that would be your job to get the kindling and the wood in each one of those fireplaces. So that, you see, you come up here in the wintertime, it's icy cold. And if you didn't have a fireplace,
You'd freeze.
You would be very, very, very cold. And if you had an infant baby, you'd have to have some way to keep the baby warm. Would you like to have lived back in those days?
Yes.
You wouldn't have a thing like that.
This is just a video tour for online. Well, it's been 20 minutes long so far.
Okay. Now, as soon as the next group leaves to go downstairs, and you can go across the way.
Yay!
Sure there's no question?
I have another one. Was there wheels on this bed rolled out, or did you just have to pick it up and bring it back manually?
That is a wooden?
Yep.
No, it has rollers on it.
Do you just like pull it out? Does it have like double beds on it?
No, no. I might tell you this while we're waiting. To make a bed, Catherine would have to take all of this off, down to the rope. See the rope there? The rope is like your springs on your mattress. Then she'd take this feather tick that you see here, and she would take it out, and she up and down, up and down. What is she doing to the feather tick when she does that? Not dirt.
She's like undoing, getting the like wrinkles out of it.
No, no.
Dust.
I'm sorry.
Dust.
Dust? Well, no.
She's fluffing it up.
Why do I have to fluff it up?
Because it'd be really, really like tense. It'd be like really strong and uncomfortable.
Well, the feathers, it's in the feather tick mattress, mattress part. If you don't put air in there and fluff up the feathers, it would be flat. And then she'd put the sheets on and the coverlets and the quilt, and then she'd slide it back under the bed.
Should take the whole thing apart just to get it out?
That's right. We don't make our beds that way today, do we? Yes, they had feather pillows.
I believe that's one of them.
Yes.
I'm getting a bed that is like, it'll have a bed on top, and you can pull out a bed from the bottom, and then if you have a guest, there'll be another. You can pull out that bed, and then the guest can sleep back there.
Yeah,
I've slept in one of those.
I suppose if you have a pet.
Could you push it back in when the kids are going to sleep?
Oh yes, you can push it all the way back till, see, all of that is just space back there. And you can just hide the whole thing. Yeah. Let's see what we have over here. Once away from, and you want to have to keep them moving.
What is this for?
You will see that one, that particular one, it's a bed warmer.
Oh,
And it's broken, so you will see it demonstrated in the next room.
that is so cool. Can we get to fill the bed?
What?
Can we get to fill the bed? I'll lay on it.
No, it goes between your mattress and your
Jonah's a peep. Jonah's a peeper. He's like, hello? Should we check the other room? Because people are running in.
Well, you just have to wait.
We could hide in the closet and pop out like a scary movie.
Sounds too good.
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
Stand over here. Do I need to talk to the teacher?
No. Why is everybody in this group are in our class? Because we're awesome like that. So cool. Because the midget's gonna be awesome.
I guess we're just gonna be awesome.
Actually, Dakota's considered tall, but not as tall as you guys.
Yeah, me and Jada are the tallest. Me and the girls always playing.
Danny was like,
Yay, is it over? Are you down yet?
Asking questions.
Done.
Does that have sound? Then in there's camera. Hey, does that have sound?
No.
Yeah, it has sound.
What you see is how the house
It's going online. Why would I post a video without sound? He's the one talking.
I don't know.
It's
Get the camera out of my face.
It's like 26 minutes long. Already. I'm going to push it on for 2 hours. Hopefully, have a 2-hour video to post online. Dun dun dun.
That's creepy.
That's an that's an attic.
Steep stairs.
That's an attic.
There's a lot of you, so we have to everybody come in. All right, this is the south bedroom, or the guest bedroom sometimes, because they did have guests. But the room would have been used all the time, even when there was nobody else in the house. They'd have people sleeping in all the beds because the house was very busy. The table, or in this case, it's working as your washstand, but on it is a pewter bowl, and the pewter came over with Tristram Coffin, the very first coffin name that came here. So it's very old because he came in the 1600s, and undoubtedly was something he already owned when he came, so he brought it with him. The chest that you see over here is a traveling chest such as they were allowed to use when moving or coming to visit out here. Everybody would have been allowed just what they could get in a chest like this. You couldn't have anything extra. So if you were going to move out here, imagine bringing everything you were allowed to bring in a chest like this. That means your sheets and pillowcases, it means your towels and washcloths, it means everything, including your clothing and any few personal items that you could manage to take. So it was really very limiting. This is covered with calf hide, and I learned that from one of the men who came through who knew about animals, and it wasn't cowhide, it was calf hide. Now, how you know the difference when it's put on something, I don't know. I would only know if it was on the calf. That's my best deal. And the PC in the center stands for Phoebe Coffin, but we don't know where Phoebe Coffin fits in all the coffin whatevers. This has to be oiled every so often because now that the calf isn't in there, the hide will dry, and when it does, it cracks and tends to pop off and all that. So we had a lady come a while back to oil it, and she overdid it, and it leaked on our floor. We weren't happy about that because we had to redo the whole floor to get rid of the oil. Well, it also leaked on the inside, and it ruined the newspapers that were covering the inside. So we took a picture of it. You can see where the newspapers were because of the shading of the coverage and all that. And we also dried out and kept a few of the pieces of newspaper so we could see what was in it. But it was all lined and covered with newspaper, which they had put on here. This is called a cannonball type bed because it's like cannonball. In the other room you saw 2 or 4 bell-shaped top, but this is a cannonball. You can see that it's rope bed like all the other beds in the house, and the ropes were what kept the mattress up off the floor. And they stretch. When you sleep on this, gradually will stretch and stretch until the thing sags in the middle. Then when you try to sleep up here, you roll down. So the two people sleeping in the bed end up together, real cozy. The other thing is that when you sleep on a feather mattress, and that's what we have here completely, the feathers all want to work to the edges, and the mattress gets thin in the middle. Well, now you've got a bed that sags and has a thin mattress. Not too comfortable for sleeping. So what are you going to do? Well, you've got to tighten up the ropes, so you had to have a rope key. And you'd go over where they tied it off, and you'd put it down, and you just wind it up like you would anything. That's why it's called a key, because it winds. And you notice what it does. It leaves a mark on the bed. It's heavy, and feathers don't pop back. So when you sleep on this, if you get out of bed, it leaves the shape of you, the bed. So when you make the bed, you have to fluff the mattress up to get all the feathers to even out, ready for the next time you sleep. And you can't lean over the bed and put your hand down and do something with the mattress. What are you going to do? You're going to leave a hand mark on the bed and it won't pop back. So you had a bed smoother to smooth the cover with. Very lightweight, and it would smooth it out without leaving any marks. Okay, this is a boot jack. Men wore leather boots clear to their knees all the time, and their leather they could not make as soft as we do today. It was very stiff. They couldn't get their boots off. From up above, they couldn't push them off. You can't get your boots off that way either. You have to pull them off. And usually, what do? You put your foot on the other one, and that's a no-no, but that's what we do. And ours are nice and soft and either rubbery or whatever, and they'll come over your heel. He couldn't do that, so he had to have one of these. He'd put his foot here and use this like you use your other foot to pull his boot off over his heel. Once he got it off far enough, he could go ahead and get them off. But you don't want to go to bed with those high boots on that you've been tromping around in. Now we have a chamber pot in here like you saw in the other room, but this one has a lid. And often what they did was to cover them with a decorative cover. This is a crocheted cover, and they called them hushers or silencers because they just weren't to be just pretty. They were also, after you went to the bathroom in the middle of the night with everybody sleeping in the room, and you put the lid on. Could you hear that?
No.
It didn't go clink like it would if you had just a bare cover. So that was the way they kept them quiet. What's this?
Bedroom.
Yes, and you put coals in there. Hot coals out of the fire. This is all metal, so it'd get hot, wouldn't it?
Yep.
So you just put it between the covers and ran it around the bed and it warmed it up. We use electric blankets, but of course they couldn't do that. Then you would just dump the coals back in the fire and run and jump in bed with it. It's still warm. And then it would stay warm all night because you sink down in those feathers. And what do the feathers do for the ducks and the geese and so forth?
They keep them snuggly.
They keep warm and keep the water out and all that. And that's what they do for people. They get in bed and it warms up and you just stay warm. Okay, this chest came from Jeremiah Cox, found it for so we know the dates before 1847, obviously. And this is a sample that is done by a little girl, and she's learning various stitches. And you had to learn how to figure this out, know how much. You see, she didn't figure it out quite right because she didn't have room for the Z, so she scrunched it in. And September's crooked, doesn't go straight, and there's not a capital S there, and this capital S isn't tall enough.
Because you're getting everybody's
And so we know she was a little girl who was just starting. It says, wrought by Hannah Ann Stratton, Wayne, September 1830, Centerville. So we know when she did it, and that she was learning what they were very good at handwork. They sewed everything by hand, and so they had to be good. And girls had to learn their stitches, and that's how they did it, by practicing on samples. And then when they got so they were good enough, they could help put pins in things and do little jobs, but eventually they had to be able to plan a dress to fit the person and make it right. Everything had to be just right. Now the covers that you see on these beds are woolen, and the wool that they use, that they knit right here, or wove, I should say, were by woolen weavers, and they had a tendency to be all congregating in this area. So there were more woolen weavers in Wayne County than the whole rest of the territory for a while. These kind of woolen beds are reversible. See, when you use weaving for it, you can just turn that over. So they had a two-sided mattress, and a lot of times they would have what they call their summer one and their winter one. They just turn it over. This one is really very much that way because when it does it, it's white on the back, so that it would be a good one to turn over for summer. So they often had that. All right, do we have any questions on what we've been talking about? Okay.
Does this shoe,
The boot jack?
the boot jack, do they have like an example of another boot in this house that they would actually use it for?
No, they don't. I have seen some very fancy ones, yes.
Is there real cannons?
What?
Cannons? You said?
It's just the way they look.
Are they what?
Real cannonball.
Oh no, those would be iron. These are wood. But a real cannonball would be iron, but it'd be shaped like this. And you know, they put it in the outside and then boom it out front.
Ready? How would I take the beds with them?
Take the beds with them. You take them apart like we do.
You put them in the chest?
Oh, probably not. Probably just lay them in the wagon. But they probably didn't bring their beds. They had to buy them when they got here or make them. Anybody else? She's ready for you to go.
Down the main stairway and out the front door and around to the basement.
Okay.
I'm staying by you because it's going to be dark.
I don't care. Those are so safe. I know, I would love to go up and down there.
What if it was just a roller coaster go up and down, and they had a little hamster running it?
I love roller coasters.
Let me film that. I've got two.
Okay. So, Daddy's with some filming.
Cheese. Record everything. All the actors.
So, filming. We're gonna post this. We're about to go to the basement.
Keep our freedom walk. That was a way of raising money. People would put their names
So,
honor the ancestors that were here. But
He's always
so see, your school bought a stove.
where?
Right there. Southview. A lot of our schools that doesn't go back and have fundraisers and buy a stone for the Freedom Walk. And that money goes to help keep the house in good shape.
Hey, this is 2006.
Bill? You're right? Okay. Sam, be careful.
Oh. It's a basement. Dang, you ready to go into the basement? Yeah. That's what happened to me.
They have electricity now. Yeah, they've got heat. Uh-oh, I'm gonna have to die.
Come on over here.
So we're in the basement.
Let's go, 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 go.
Come on, you guys can come over here. Come around here to this side. Get everybody in. There we go.
Look at the wall. And it's still got water in it. Oh, I thought it was way.
No? Yeah, it looks really clear, doesn't it?
Yeah, I thought there was just a little bit of water way down there. How is it?
What you have to do is you can do that.
Share so everybody knew it. Like,
Yeah, let everybody get a look in here. There we go.
how would that possible?
You can stand right here.
How is it possible?
How does the water still get in? How is it so? How is it just perfectly clear, and then all of a sudden it starts going right?
Have you guys learned about groundwater in science class yet?
No.
No? You haven't started with science class yet?
No.
Well, let me get you on a head start with that, okay? Sometimes, like this area, there'll be a couple feet under the ground. So you don't have to dig very deep to get water to start to come up. Now, it's very clear because it goes through the rocks to get up to this point. And the rocks filter it up. You guys have water pitchers in your home with special filters in them?
Yeah.
Yeah, have you seen those on commercials and stuff?
Yeah.
The rocks do the same thing like those filters in the water pitchers do. The water goes through them and the rocks take out all the dirt and the yucky stuff and it comes up clear. That little trench in the back is taking the water out to the backyard. So all the water is coming up through the ground. And the level of the groundwater in this area will always keep it right there. Now every once in a while, if we get a lot of rain, it'll spill up over the edges. That little trench can't handle the extra water. It'll spill up over the edges and flood in the area, but it doesn't happen that often. Remember about this time, remember in springtime last year, right before the end of school, we had a lot of rain around in this area here?
Yeah.
This thing flooded so bad. What's your name?
Connor.
Connor and Jade would be standing in water right now. One time last April, this flooded so bad it flooded right up here to the second step. But most of the time, it stays right at that level, and we can use that. Now, that's a luxury item for Levi to have the well inside of his house, right? It'd be very, very nice that you don't have to go outside to get your water from your well.
You can swim in that.
Well, that's your drinking water. Do you want to swim in it?
No.
Yeah, the rest of the family wouldn't be too happy if you swam in it. But it also worked with the secrecy of the Underground Railroad. Now, when you were a slave hunter and you came into a community or you came into a town, you wouldn't know exactly which house was the Underground Railroad house. You'd have to look for clues. And if you saw the coffin kids going out to the well 10 times a day, or if you saw them carrying in 6 or 7 buckets of water at one time, either the coffin family's the cleanest people in Indiana, or there are more people in that house than what there appears to be. Why are they using that much water? There must be a whole bunch of people in that house. Who are those people?
Slaves.
Slaves. So having it inside the house, you can use as much water as you want, and nobody around here would know how much water you're using. See that big saw up there?
Yeah.
That's an ice saw. Now, Jesse and Levi and Henry, Jesse and Henry were Levi's 2 oldest sons. They would go out in the wintertime and saw ice from the lakes and the rivers and the creeks around in this area. They'd bring back these big chunks of ice and they'd put it in the refrigerator. When you leave this room today, look and see that sawdust in there. If you pack ice and sawdust really, really tight, it'll last for a long time, like a couple months. Okay? So they bring back the ice, pack it in sawdust, and that would be the refrigerator where they keep stuff cold inside there. Now, those of you who are up front, you can go on out. Those of you who are in the back, can come a little bit closer to look at the well. And then we're going to head out here to the kitchen.
Is it really that small?
The well?
That's big. That's pretty big for the old man.
I can get that fire.
It's always been brick. Now, the brick that's around that area is a little bit newer.
Right there.
Because when they restored the house,
I can
when the
see
state of
it.
Indiana bought the house and restored it, they had to put some new brick down there. But the well has always been brick.
Is this little brick right here?
So even though it looks nice and clear, we don't let people drink it because it's got some chemicals in it.
That is so cool.
Kinsey.
That's starting to get loose, that brick, right?
Yeah, I know, it is, isn't it?
It looks little.
Like pesticides they put on homes.
Exactly. Because farmers use those to keep the bugs off. Yeah, you're right. They're mixing bowls. This is the kitchen area. So Catherine was doing most of her cooking down here. You guys, were you guys upstairs in the dining room yet?
No.
Right above us?
No.
Not yet? You will be in a little bit, but there's a fireplace up there too. And Catherine might have done a little cooking upstairs. But in the middle of the summertime when it was really hot, that fireplace would have been going at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you wouldn't want a hot fireplace going in the middle of summertime, right?
No.
Catherine would have been down here cooking where it's a little bit cooler, a little bit nicer down here, rather than getting the whole house hot upstairs there with that. We got other different little cooking instruments here from that time. A candle maker.
Awesome.
Butter molds. You guys have all seen a butter churn, right? You guys have seen pictures of butter churns.
On cartoons, yeah.
On cartoons. After you got done making your butter, you put it inside of this. This is called a butter mold. And you see how it has a little rose on top of it?
Yeah.
So you put your butter in there, and then you push it down, and that would put a rose imprint on your butter, so it look all nice and fancy. And then we had little butter molds like this, which have little flowers on top of them.
And a little rose petal.
Now some of these bricks here, you see the newer bricks, these are 1970s bricks. But you see these bricks here, these are 1839 bricks. So some of them they were able to save, others they weren't able to. What do you think it is?
Butter.
Not butter.
Soap.
Soap, very good. This is called lye soap. Does anybody know the two main ingredients of lye soap?
Soap and... Soap isn't soap.
Soap isn't soap? They would...
Water.
Well, what they would do is, you take the ashes from your fireplace, and you run water through it. And when you did that, you got a chemical called lye out of that. Now, if you take pure lye and put it on your skin, it'll burn you like an acid. So what they had to do is they had to mix it with something to make it a little bit softer so you could clean with it, but you didn't burn you. So what do you think they mixed with the lye to make it softer?
Water.
Not water. You there in the back.
The fire dust.
Not the fire dust.
Soap.
You're getting closer. One more guess there in the back. Huh?
The chemicals.
Pig fat. So that was your soap back then. Lye, chemicals, and pig fat. And that's what you use to clean yourself with. Now every once in a while they put some perfume in there to make it smell nice. But this is what you use for your dishes, for your clothes, for your body, whatever. Lye, chemicals, and pig fat. Those were your...
That would be the picture.
Yes, that would be a pitcher.
And you use that.
This is called a dry sink. They call it a dry sink because they didn't have plumbing back then. They didn't have bathrooms and sinks like we do today. So you'd have to get your bucket of water. There would be a bucket of water there sitting the whole time. And whenever you needed some, you just pour some in that bowl there, wash your face, you wash your hands.
Do they get the water from the fountain?
They would have got the water from the well. So that's what would have made it really nice to have it inside your house, right? Catherine's cooking right there. She's doing the dishes right here. She needs a bucket of water. Does she have to go all the way out to the backyard? Or better yet, does she send one of the kids out to the backyard to get the water? No, she just goes right down there and gets the water there.
How do they get the water upstairs?
They carry it. They would carry it all over there. That's when you had to work hard back in those times. So you'd carry the water everywhere.
You just don't. So you don't rely on the electricity back then.
No, there is no electricity like this. This wouldn't have been here there then. We have it here now just because we have to have some light down here because it'd be really dark.
But in real life that would be. But back then it would be a candle.
Back then it would have been a candle up there lighting the way.
Well, the camera wasn't nice.
Huh?
The camera wasn't.
Is this a baby chair over here? Right here?
It is. They had like chairs back then and baby chairs just like we did today. Have you been upstairs in Levi and Catherine's room yet?
Yeah.
Did you see the crib, the cradle?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean it was. They had cribs and cradles back then for the babies and high chairs and all that stuff like that.
It's almost 50. I've only been recording for 50 minutes.
Huh?
They would put this under the fireplace to heat up the water.
You're right, exactly right.
They've been recording for almost 50 minutes now.
They did all the things we did back then too. It's just you had to do it took you either a lot longer or you had a lot more different steps with it. Go ahead.
49 minutes. Almost 50.
Water fell on the
Yes, they would. And see that big metal ring on the left-hand
50
side?
minutes.
This?
No, inside the fireplace.
This?
Yeah, so they'd put a rod or something like that in there, and they'd hang pots over top of it. They'd hang pots from the middle chains, all the things like that. We should be making a switch here soon, and they're going to take you guys out to the barn next. Anybody have any questions before we head out to the barn?
Even those vents, did they work back then?
No, we had to put those vents in. Like every once in a while, we have to put some modern things in the house. And we have to put something like that in to keep the air circulating so it cuts down on the humidity inside the house.
It'd be cool if we got to play a game where one of us were slaves and the others were the coffins.
To do that, see what it was like?
Yeah, it'd be a cool game.
Huh? Yeah, we're about done. I'm surprised he hasn't. Usually he's come got you by this time. So, anybody else got any questions while we're sitting here waiting?
Nobody?
Are you guys on fall breaks then this week?
Yeah. Thursday and Friday. Tomorrow and Friday are fall break.
Tomorrow and Friday is a fall break?
Then we get
oh,
the
here he
weekends.
comes.
Are you guys ready?
Yeah,
now?
we're ready.
You guys can come on with me.
Did you know that you were on the internet?
I hope he does. But you just told him.
I bet he did. I got your own.
Now stand on that side, not past the post.
So right here?
No, stand on this side. You can go in the barn, then not past the second post.
So stand right in front of the red thing, or behind the red thing. So we are not allowed to go past this mark, right? That's the mark we're not allowed to go past.
It's a convertible, like a Mustang. The roof would go back in the trunk and go up on hot days or on snowy days. They would put a blanket over them, and the sides have been that. So whole family could have fit in there. Those steps are right here. Here's those steps. The wheels are made out of wood and iron. A lot of people ask about that. Now, since you were the business owner, you had a lot of land. Since you had a lot of land, those are some actual cowbells they found of his. And he had a lot of crops. His main crops were corn and wheat. Wheat was his main one because when you grow it, you cut probably 4 inches off of it, put that one pot, and take this, the bigger reaper stick, that's the reaper stick, small reaper stick that would cut the 4 inches off, bigger reaper stick that would cut the rest. The rest would then use for straw. And the that one pile right there, you'd beat it with a flail, crack open the pods, put it in a wheelbarrow, and take it to the whittling basket. Stir it up 10 to 20 times. That's a half size of regular whittling basket. So, it would probably been operating 2 to 4 people. Since how tall you were and big you were and strong you were. So, the reason why that is, like, you see the leaves right here in the fields, in grass and dirt and all that. When you don't want that in your bread, so you have to do that rather than clean. So after you take the flour out of that, you can get into the big around the bread. Then he also made houses, like he made his house right there. This is a bronze axe, one of the bigger axes back then. You would cut the bigger trees down, that's the only tree you can shingle cutter right here. You see up there, shingles, different sizes and shapes. So that would have been a really sharp blade, but then after you cut down a log and you wanted it to be posts like this in the ground. Have you ever seen how they made butter back then? You go up and down?
Yeah.
That's what you would do with the post. You would beat it in the ground, up and down. Any questions for this room? Yep.
Where's the wagon with the false bottom?
Huh?
Can you show us the false bottom in the wagon?
In the next room.
Oh, come on.
Is that a cowbell?
Yes, these are those cowbells. Any other questions? Okay, now in the next room,
You can go up halfway up the stairways for getting as many people in there as possible. Okay? You guys can go. It's 2 to 4 barrels if you have a small hogshead, or 4 to 8. This is the 2 for 1. This is the press out cutter you put your corn stalks in. The reason why you wanted to tie your sleeve in there was sleigh masters put it so anything you can kill a person. They wanted in the wagon. If you had sleighs, you would have been arrested and all that bad stuff. You would probably die and like that. If you didn't have sleighs and they did it, they could have got arrested and get charged with all that. So both sides have to be careful. It's kind of like a dog collar for cows. That's called a yoke. Double yoke. That's a double yoke. That's a single yoke. The double yoke has a metal ring inside of it. That's to hook up to the roof of the wagon so they can pull it to either south field or just out of town. Now they made highways back then, so that goes to the same exact places as back roads. If you went on back roads, they would wonder why don't you go on the highway? It's much faster and more shops and see and all that. So they had to be careful. That's a jack wheel. Jack wheel up. No wheel up. Now some movie company made a movie of this place where they broke the jug off. The jug is full of usually or cow's grease, and you kill an animal and you bake it. The grease after you get off of it, you lubricate the milk by pouring it off. This is a replica of his barn. His barn was actually, see that stone right there? The wood hanging off of it is his barn. Now that stone was the size of the barn. That was his. But his barn was actually a few blocks that way. And his business was right across the street. These are commercials and you like that. Any questions for this room? Yes.
With a false bottom, is there always hay under there? Is that meant to make the slaves comfortable when they're traveling?
Yeah. Any other questions? Now the outhouse is 3-hole. The reason why it's really disgusting is because they wanted as many slaves to go down there as possible. You don't want a big long line going from the house down to it. They will see that you have slaves, and that, so they wanted as many people to go down there as possible. The moon that you see on the side of the thing, you can't see it from here on that side, and on the door is a moon. That means family bathroom. In different cities or countries, the moon would probably been for women and the star would have been for women, while the sun and some other things would have been for men, but moon means family bathroom here. Any questions about the land? Now you saw in the basement the well. They actually had a stream that ran down to the well and was going there. That's what the slaves traveled on. Any questions? Okay, now up there you would see a bell into the little garden. That's what Levi Hawkins' wife would plant peppermint or stuff used for lettuce or something like that, basil, that's her own little garden for spices and something like that. Now the bell was owned by my grandparents. They would have had a bell similar like to it, and it would have been to let him know that slave masters were here and she was in danger, or they were in danger, or it was time for lunch or supper. Any questions? No questions? Okay, you guys, I'm sorry, I don't know why we're at motion. Go right here and go straight down to the porch, back porch. And if you have money, you can go up to the gift table. If you don't have money, there's white benches inside the porch that you can sit on and wait till the next group is done.
Well, I got some money I need to spend. that's the outhouse. We're not supposed to look in there. Let's follow the path. It's like following the yellow brick road. It's not yellow.
You brought money.
I brought money. I got $20 in my pocket.
I don't believe that. Okay, you got it. There's Bailey and all kinds of different things.
Yay! This is the gift shop, right?
Yes. Now, if you have money, go up here, and then he'll take care of you. You don't have money.
Danny, I'll give you the camera.
Camera out of my face.
Put that on my face, dude. I'm not freaking playing. Put the camera on my face. Yeah. Yeah. Little man. You shut up. You shut up. You shut up. You're a bus or walk. No, my mama comes to me up in her brand new car. Just got one yesterday. So shoot. Shoot. With my brand new 24s on them too. Okay, you scoot over. I'm gonna smack him upside his head. Okay, scoot. I'm also. Oh, you wait until I get there and I get down. Not Isaac. No, where's way harder? No, because it's not simple like you do. It's gonna be hard. I got the same thing. You're not gonna sit there while I'm at your cousin's house and tell me. What'd you get? It's like a Mexican toy. You play with your bowling cup? You play with your bowling cup? No. You get a bowling cup. Is the camera still recording? Yes. Yay. Watch him meet me. In 1 hour, 1 minute. What? Let me see the camera. Why do you want to? You're still recording. It's been over an hour. Okay, now everybody.
How in the world has this been 2 hours?
Well, more money than that information.
I failed. Oh, that's what about.
Yeah.
It's Mexican.
It's Mexican?
Yeah.
It was made by the Mexicans.
I know what you do.
Ball in a cup, ball in a cup.
You take the ball out, you go like this until you can get the ball back to the cup.
Look, what's back in my bag? I'll play with it. I was bored, so I just did one yo-yo. Right now, we're all waiting to go to the 3D to sit down. Sitting down. I am just excited. I've never been out of town for a field trip.
What?
I've been to the Mizzou, yeah. Jay, hold the camera. You give me.
Hi. Bye. Look at Mimi. Get that camera out of my face. Hey.
No. I hate games. So I could have brought my phone. No. Thanks for my camera back. Can I hold the camera? No, you may not. Please. No. Please. No. Please. No. Why? Because the code is awesome. That's like the fifth time I've said my tongue out of the camera. For a while, so get that camera out of my face, Logan. Wow. You're too hyper, man. I'm excited. Well, I'm hungry. So am I. Did you bring your own lunch? Yes, I did. Quit talking. This is for my brother. He's sick. Yay.
You guys need to calm down.
Where did you guys start? And do you remember where you
We started in the upstairs by the hidden room.
Where the hidden room is? Yeah. Okay, cool. How many rotations we got yet? Thank you.
I want to welcome you all to the Levi Coffin Library. We call this the library, but we do have 2 beds in here. So we call them the day beds. So before we get to the beds, look at the pictures of Levi and Katie Coffin. It gives you an idea of who we're talking about that lived here, that built this house in 1839. So I guess they could have anything, couldn't they? But being a library, we would have a bookcase. And this is the original bookcase and the original glass and everything to the windows. Now we have the books, and they're all dated back to the 1800s. Can you see them?
Yeah.
Okay. Now Levi was a school teacher in North Carolina before he came to Indiana. Now, being a school teacher, you might have a book or two that you want to keep. But evidently somebody kept this book. It's dated 1847. That's a long time ago. But one thing I like about this little book, that it's a 3rd grade reader, but I still enjoy these stories, and they have beautiful poems and spelling words, and you know, boys and girls, it's unbelievable. I have read words in here, and I never knew what the definition was. That's awful, but I said it's really strange, the words they used in those days, and we don't say them today. But we had no electricity, so we would have to use candles. Well, after the candle was lit, you would put the candle out with a candle stuffer, and then we'd use the wick trimmer to trim the wick, and then we could go on out, whatever, but we don't ever leave the room with a candle burner. Remember that, that's dangerous. We have a pair of wire-rimmed sunglasses. Now, boys and girls, you don't see anything like that today. If you did, it wouldn't last long, would they? These are dated back into the 1800s. So they were made very well. Now, these glasses resemble the ones that Aunt Katie's got on in her picture. And you will see the glass, it's made this way. If you ever could get a picture of her, do you have her in your class, in your school book or anything?
No.
You haven't seen
Don't.
one of your school books?
Not yet, at least.
Well, are you going to be studying about Levi Coffin this year in school?
Maybe.
Okay. Well, look at her glasses, and you remember these. But look how they're funny. They go behind the ears, and they go like that. I don't know whether I like that or not. Okay, boys and girls, we have a little container here where they use live coals out of the fireplace. And say you wanted to go for a buggy ride, but you knew it was cold outside. You would fill this up with live coals, put it in the buggy, and you got warm feet, or you could even have a hand warmer, but they call this a foot warmer. Hanging here by the fireplace is a set of bellows. Anybody know what bellows are used for? Yes.
I never got to see the bellows.
I'm
Oh,
sorry?
right there, that bellow that's used to keep the coals hot and keep the fire burning.
Right, right.
I have one at my grandpa's house.
Oh, so you know what they're for. Well, a lot of little boys and girls will wait until I get through, and I've already talked about them. They say, what are those? And I think I'm going to ask you all, what are they? Notice on the mantle, boys and girls, the Steph Thomas clock. Now, if you be really quiet, what do you hear? Your hand went.
Tick-tock.
Right, and it's as quiet as you've been all day, I bet.
Yeah. It still works.
It still works, and it chimes at everything the hour. Notice the little container up there. It's made out of wood right next to the clock. That is called a spill holder. Now the spills that are made in there are from rolled up newspaper print and are used in place of matches. Back in those days, matches were very scarce, and when they could get them, they were very expensive, so not many people would have them. So they would have rolled up newspaper print, and they would get one of those spills, put it in the fireplace, hold it till it gets to burn it, then you could light your candles or whatever you need it for, and then knock the fire out there in the spill holder and be ready to go again for the next time. So it's a nice little container to have. Notice the chair, it was made by a slave. That's how he obtained his freedom, was to make chairs and sell them. So what he would get from them was how he obtained his freedom. Notice the desk, and if you boys and girls want to stand up on that, you can see what's on top of the desk. Now the desk is from Levi Coffin's store in Cincinnati because there's a shipping label on the back that tells us this. And you notice the quill pen, boys and girls, on the top. That's what they would use for their ink pens. And then we got a little brown jug there with hold ink, so they would just pour a little bit into the well that we have there for the ink. They would start writing, say a blob of ink would fall off of the little pen. They would use the container next to it with sand in it, and it would absorb the ink. So it would be like a blotter that we used in our days, or my days anyway. Now the paperwork there is a last will and testament of Levi Coffin in his own handwriting. And then we have a letter right next to that he had written to his son. His son was over in Ohio to a school, and so he had written to his dad asking for money. So Dad's writing him a letter back, and he said, I am sending thee $3. Yeah, he likes having to break it down into smaller coins and not to spend it all in one place, because he liked for him to buy a stamp and send a letter home once in a while. And stamps were very expensive in those days, so he didn't have much money to go on, but it had to last him for quite a while. You will notice the windows, boys and girls, and how the glass is all wavy and everything. That tells you that glass is very old. And they would pull the curtains at night so that nobody could, well, they could just walk past you and look right in. So they didn't want people to see what was going on here in the house at nighttime. We do have a map over there on the wall, and as Coffin will show you where Indiana is at, and that the green places around Indianapolis area was settled by white settlers, and the rest of it was by Indians. So that was 1824, so that's been a few years ago also. Now, anybody got any questions that they want to ask? Yes, son?
Why is there a hole in the popper or whatever? Why is there a big hole in it? Fire popper.
In the, where now?
The big hole.
Oh, and well, honey, I imagine that we're lucky to have it here as old as it is. Don't you think so? It may be holy, but at least it shows what it was and how old it is. So it proves that we have. I don't know, I imagine it just from age more than anything's reason there's a hole in it. Truthfully, I don't know. We do know the stories we tell you, boys and girls, are from Levi Coffin himself, because he kept a diary all the time he lived here. And he finally put it in a book form, and it's called Reminisce of Levi Coffin. And he tells all the stories, things that went on here in this place. And that's how we got our stories. Yes, son?
When Levi Coffin moved, did the slaves move with him?
Did the white slaves move with them? No, honey, the slaves have already gone into Canada. The slaves thought they were free once they got here in the free states. And Indiana was a free state back then. It meant there were no slaves at all. Only the ones that escaped from the South. Well, they were not free because the owners of the slaves would send posses up here and try to get them, and take them back down south. They had to go into Canada. So that's, when they met here at Levi's, they were sent on to Canada. So, no, they didn't take them to Cincinnati. That would have been the worst place. Yes, honey.
How long was this long slave? How long did the long slave stay here?
Well, and Levi tells us as long as they needed to be. If they knew that the owners of the slaves were not on the trail, they could stay here for a long time. One guy in particular, maybe you've not heard about him yet, but his name was William Bush, and Levi gave him the last name because they shipped him here in a box, and he had his friends to ship him in it from Cincinnati. And they opened the box, and there was a bushy-headed man and bushy beard. And Levi looked at him, and he said, "What's your name?" And he said, "William." And so he said, "Your name's William Bush." And he lived here the rest of his life, and now he's buried down here at the Fountain City Cemetery. So we do know he's one of them. Have you ever heard of Uncle Tom's Cabin? It's a book. Mom's teacher's letter. Have you ever read the book Uncle Tom's Cabin? Okay, you read about Eliza Harris in Uncle Tom's Cabin. She was also brought here. She came across the Ohio River on chunks of ice. She brought her baby with her. So Aunt Katie and some of the women in the community helped get her back to health because she really was sick after she got here. And she stayed here for quite a while. And she was okay. She got on to Canada and met with her husband in Canada. So I thought that was a very wonderful story to read. And Harry Beecher Stowe, the author, lived next door to Levi and Katie Coffin in Cincinnati. So we think, and Levi surmises, that maybe they were the people that were mentioned in Uncle Tom's Cabin book. So I don't know whether you read it or not, but it's very interesting. And if you get a chance, you get online and find out about Levi Coffin and a lot of the stories that he had written about that happened here. Now, anybody want to ask me anything else? And by the way, can I ask you a question? Where all haven't you been? We got a room. Have you been across the hallway? Have you been over to the other room where it's a kitchen that's got the fireplace and all?
That was downstairs.
Well, no, the one right above stairs.
No.
We've been to the
Okay.
the basement.
No, before you get to the basements, right?
We've been upstairs.
You've been upstairs, been in
Clothing.
the whole,
And the hiding room.
yeah, okay,
We've been out there.
okay. Then you've only got the downstairs you can go.
You've already been downstairs. We haven't been to the upstairs kitchen yet.
You've still got 2 rooms to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Great, you mean the Levi Coffin book? Or Uncle Tom's Cabin? Ready? Okay.
Wait, what?
Are you a descendant of Levi and Katie?
No, I don't believe so. I've never really checked that far. That's why.
How long have we been going?
Yep. That's how long we've been in this house. I feel like we're going to be told a bedtime story.
Oh, it's a little baby doll.
If you want to sit down on the floor, then that way everybody can see. Well, this is our sitting room, not because I asked you to sit down, but that way everybody can see. This is where the ladies of the abolitionist small group. This is where the ladies of the abolitionist movement would meet
meet once a week and they would sew and mend clothes for the slaves. Levi tells in his book that when the slaves came to this house, their clothes were tattered and torn. So the ladies would see that their clothes were mended. And also the ladies would collect money from the local townspeople. And they would buy shoes for the slaves because many of them came here without shoes on. Even in the wintertime, some of them did not have shoes to wear. So Aunt Katie and these ladies would see that they had a pair of shoes to wear. So this is a room where they did all of this work. Over here we have a mammy bench. This is where a lady could put her baby here, and she could sit here and rock her baby while she was doing her mending. If there wasn't a baby to take care of, this board is removable, and you could see some more people here. And then we have our spinning wheel, which is also called a walking wheel because you walk back and forth to do your spinning. Then we have a sewing bird. Now, the lady would press down on the bird's tail, and the beak would open up. Then she could sit here and put her material in the bird's beak and stretch her material with this hand. She had this hand free to do her sewing. And these glasses are called extension glasses or adjustable glasses because those shafts can be pulled out to fit more comfortable on the face. Now, I guess you were told about the samplers upstairs, if there's something wrong with them. Okay, well, it's kind of hard to see what is wrong with this sampler. You see what's wrong?
There's 2 A's in it?
No.
No.
No. The big Z is missing on this sampler.
I
So
saw
they
it.
probably left it off on purpose to show you that it is not a perfect sampler. This is a hooded cradle. Many mothers came to this house with babies because babies would be sold away from their mothers. And a mother would not want to be separated from her child, so she would escape from her slave master and bring her baby up to this house. And the little doll that you see in the cradle was made by a slave mother for her child to play with. It's just a little rag doll stuffed with rags. Then up on our mantle, we have a pillar and scroll clock because the posts look like pillars and then the scroll works in the top. But inside the clock, over on this side, shows an 1820 census. It shows and identifies 26 states and territories, with each state showing its census. And when it's all added up, it shows a little over 9 million people in the United States at that time. Then over on the other side of the clock shows the postal rates. The more miles you sent a letter, the more postage you had to pay. There's a lot of different rates inside the clock. The highest rate is for a letter that was sent over 400 miles, and that was 25 cents. So 25 cents was a lot of money back in those days. Wouldn't buy very much today, but it was a lot of money back in. It wouldn't even buy a postage stamp. So 25 cents was a lot of money back in those days. Then we have an arrow back rocking chair because the posts look like arrows. And then our walnut cupboard has our pretty dishes in it. That's all ironstone china. And over in England, the first coffin came over here from England, but it's called the Fantasia pattern. If you'll notice, there are no handles on the cups. And we've had a lot of people from England that have toured the house. They tell us that Levi was a school teacher in North Carolina. When he came up here, he continued to teach part-time. So back here is your schoolmaster's desk. And underneath the desk, we have a $10 box that you would store your important papers in. And the portrait is of Levi. That was painted by Marion Blair, who was a Hoover artist from around the Bloomington, Indiana area. And then over on that wall is what we call a sheepskin document. It is a land grant signed by Andrew Jackson in 1835. Do you know who Andrew Jackson was? Nobody knows?
Not yet. I was young, won't tell us.
Andrew Jackson was the president of the United States. He was the 7th president of the United States. Okay? Are there any questions that anybody wants to ask?
What about the picture back there?
That's the Declaration of Independence, the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
Oh.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, before we can go on, I will tell you about these in the windows. This is called a carder. You know, when you get your wool ready for spinning, you have to brush it or comb it. And so this combs the wool from the sheet to get it ready for spinning. So this is called a carder. And then this is called a shuttle. When you're making rugs, carpets, blankets, you make it on a loom. And then this was put in between the threads on the loom. And this was woven between the threads. And so this is how they run the carpet.
It looks like a boat.
What everybody says is to me, doesn't it? Okay, are there any other questions before we move on?
Is there anything in those cabinets?
No. Well, we just test the supplies in there. No, we have nothing in there. Okay. I will tell you, before you go into the next room, that notice the walls, the thickness of the walls as you go through the rooms. The walls are all 3 bricks deep, and I'm even talking about the walls upstairs. They're all bricks. And then they were plastered over. It's got plaster over the bricks. And the plaster was held in by pig hair or horse hair. That's how they held the plaster together. Okay, any questions?
How do you use that big wheel? Do you just run on it or something?
I watched them spin. I was so fascinated with watching them spin, which has been years ago. And I couldn't tell you today how they did it. But I'd love to learn how to do it. But I did notice her walking back and forth, and she had this wool, which is the string on here. And the way she pulled it and walked back and forth, how's that? This what? The sewing bird? Yeah. You press down on the bird's tail. I don't want to touch it because I don't want to break the spring. It was broken once, so I'm not gonna demonstrate this. Don't want to break it. I want to be responsible. But you do press down on the bird's tail, and the beak comes up, opens up. And then you put the material in the bird's beak, and that's how they that works.
So it kind of just like holds what you're sewing while you're not sewing.
Huh?
So like it holds some of it while
It
you're
holds the
sewing
material. So it was a handy. Okay, you can go into the next room.
We've been in here for an hour and a
Is this your
half.
last room?
I think so.
Did you go upstairs?
Yes.
So you've been
Downstairs.
out to the barn?
Yes.
And down in the basement?
Yes.
So this is probably your last room.
Last
Okay,
room.
because you guys go upstairs, haven't you?
This is our last room.
Okay. And remember, the kitchen was directly below this in the basement, okay?
It's
Now,
not
there's a
upstairs.
very important reason why I like to have you sitting on the floor here that I'll tell you about in just a minute. But you know what? As far as the runaway slaves are concerned, we think that this is probably the most important room of the house. I want you to sort of pretend with me that it's the middle of the night, okay?
Okay.
And you know how dark it would be outside without all those electric lights that we have?
Yeah.
So Levi says that the wagon would pull up here to the side of the house, okay? They would hear a soft knock on the door. They would come down to greet them. Levi would take the fellow who brought them here down to the barn to care for the horses, feed and water the horses. Aunt Katie, as they always called Catherine, would welcome the runaway slaves in. He says that they would make pallets on the floor in front of the fireplace. Now, have you ever had your friends or your cousins come over and you put all the blankets and clothes on the floor or whatever? That's what we're talking about. And again, think about riding in that wagon you saw in the barn all night long on a cold winter's night. You would be tired and everything. And so they would rest here in front of the fire as Aunt Katie and the girls would start preparing food for them. And Levi says on one of those occasions when they went to the door in the early morning hours, there were 2 wagons there. And Catherine said to one of the drivers, well, what do we have today? And he said, all of Kentucky. And she said, well, bring all of Kentucky in. I said, it must have seemed that way. There were 17 runaway slaves that arrived at one time. Now, that's the largest number that Levi ever talks about coming at once. But I want you guys to think about this. What if you went to your door in the middle of the night, and there's 17 perfect strangers standing there, and they're tired, and they're cold, and they're hungry? Would you welcome them in and make a place for them to sleep, and to go get food, start preparing food for them, and go to your closet and get some of those clothes out for them? And it tells you the kind of people the Coffins were. Remember, they just didn't do this once or twice. They did this hundreds of times. And so one of the reasons that I especially like to have you guys sitting on the floor in this room is, again, I want you to think about this for a minute, that you are sitting in the exact same spot, on the exact same boards, in front of the exact same fireplace that those runaway slaves sat 170 years ago.
Wow.
And I want you to think about what was going through their mind, okay? That, you know, they were probably scared because they didn't know if they could trust the people like Levi and Catherine. You know, white people had probably never been kind to them in their life. But Levi says that after a while, when they realized that Levi and Catherine were going to do everything that they could to help them, that they would start, telling them their story, what their life as a slave had been like, and how they were able to escape, and what family members they had to leave behind. And these are the kinds of stories that Levi tells in his book. Some of the things in this room I think are especially interesting. Can you imagine the bowl here all being carved out of one whole big piece of wood? And the table, they would have to have a much bigger table for all those people, but this one, if we didn't have the chairs sitting so close, would actually lift up, and it forms a bench. And the wood rod that it's turning on can be pulled out and put on this side, and it can be lifted either way. So after dinner, you can have your table back put up, and you could sit here in front of the fire and do your homework. And this is one of my favorite things in this room. You saw the kitchen downstairs, but we have some of the cooking utensils here. This is the toaster. And did you see that just like our toaster today, the bread would go down in the slot, you put it in front of the fire toasts one side, you give it a little kick with your toe, and that's how you toast the other side. And this one is kind of fun, although I'm glad I don't have to use it. It's so heavy. I keep saying I'm going to take it home and weigh it. I know the darn thing weighs about 20 pounds. But here's the fun thing, okay? It's the waffle iron. Well, the fun thing is that every one of your waffles is a different design, and the design on the lid is different from on the bottom, so the top and the bottom of your waffle had different designs. But I've always said Catherine Shirley would have been wore out before she had enough waffles made for all those people. Now, you guys have TVs and computers and Game Boys and Wii's and all those fun things, okay?
Okay.
But they didn't have them back then, okay? So the kids had to help with all the chores, like making the candles. They would put the wick in here, pour the hot wax in here. When it cooled off, then it would form the candle, of course, and they would pull it out and put all the candles in the house. They also, the kids would have had to have helped make all the soap. Remember, they had to make all their own soap. I want you guys to be happy that you live in the 21st century where we make soap smell good. Believe me, their soap does not smell good.
Unless they had perfume.
They didn't add perfume, so I don't know how they, you know, it's like even after they took a bath, I'm not sure they would have smelled very good. These are the straight razors the men would shave with, and this is the hone covered with leather, and that's what they would sharpen it on to get it sharp before they would shave. I've always said, I think this is why we see a lot of back in the old days, a lot of men with beards. I don't think they wouldn't use that to shave. I'd be afraid I'd split my throat. And you know, all the pictures we have, all the photographs and everything we have of Levi, he's clean shaven. And the towel bar lifts off, and that's because we're actually supposed to have a circular towel. So you have to slide the towel on over the end, so when you wash up for dinner, then you just turn the towel around to a clean dry spot, you know, to dry your hands. And the towel always stays there. Now I'm going to have you get up. We're going to come over here to the case and kind of form just kind of a semicircle here. If we get too close, then everybody can't see, okay? So step back here a little bit and come up here so everybody can kind of see, okay? The newspaper tells of Levi's funeral in Cincinnati in 1877. Now, he was almost 79 years old, and that was quite an old age, you know, to live to back in those days. These are advertisements from his store here and in Cincinnati that he had things not made by slaves to sell in his store. The National Geographic article was all the way back in the 1980s, and we were fortunate that the coffin house was included. But the small picture there of the tombstone with the wooden shoes in front, that's the grave of William Bush. And he's buried in our cemetery here at the south end of town. He was one of the runaway slaves who arrived here. The story goes that his name was William. And did you know that that's one of the stories that, yes, that he arrived in a box, okay, and everybody's first impression of him was his bushy hair. But did you know that a slave's last name was that of their slave owner, not necessarily their parents? So that's why they wanted to get a new name, okay? And so he would just take, they would take a new name. So he took the name William Bush because that's what people had nicknamed him. Well, he stayed here, lived the rest of his life. He was a blacksmith. And you know, a blacksmith made all the metal things, you know, and the horseshoes and all that. And they would be having them in putting that iron in the hot fire. So we think that he had wooden shoes because that would protect their feet. You know, the hot sparks and everything would burn right through leather shoes. And the last thing I want to point out over here is the ankle iron. Can you imagine having that placed around your ankle and see the big chain, having your ankles chained together or being chained to other people?
It's like jail.
Yeah, exactly, just like jail. And you know, if you knew that you were going to be sold at auction, if you knew that you were going to be sold away from your parents or your brothers and sisters or your kids and you were never going to see your family again, that's when you would probably try to escape. And so that's why they had to chain them as they were taking them to auction to try to keep them from escaping. And Levi tells these horrible stories, you know, of seeing the slaves being sold at auction and being, you know, torn away from their children, and they were crying and they were begging not to be taken away from their family. And so it's these things that he witnessed that just, you know, strengthened his belief that he had to do everything he could to help the slaves gain their freedom. Okay, now that does complete your tour, so I want to see if you have any last minute questions that you can think of. We're going to have, okay.
Why is there a hole in the shoe just by age?
Yeah, we think so. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, because we know by the 1850 census that he was here in town in 1850. So that was, you know, 160 years ago. So we assume that, you know, they just wore out from age.
I was the kid that yelled out 172.
Huh?
I was the kid that yelled out the answer.
Very good. Very good. See, I'm proud of good math people. Yes. You know, the herb garden that you saw
Loader
out
and
here by
pestle.
where the bell was, you know, they would dry the herbs and everything and crush them up. And that's what they would use for medicines and stuff, because they didn't have all the kinds of medicines, you know, like we have.
William Bush used it.
Huh?
William
Yes,
Bush
William
used
Bush used it, exactly.
I read it.
Exactly.
That concludes our tour. This is the end of our tour now, and now we're gonna go eat lunch, go back to school, and go on with our lives, and I hope we have a good fall break. Wait. We're going outside.
Thank you all for being such a good group.
Never mind. This is the end of the tour. So excited. This is so awesome. I'm gonna talk to the camera. That was the end of our tour. We're going back to eat lunch, and then we're gonna go have the rest of all fall break. So, woohoo! It's food. Is your camera almost dead? No, it's just down one battery. We'll see ya.